He walked through the heart of Nazi power wearing their uniform. He issued orders to soldiers who saluted him. He sat in strategy meetings, listened to classified briefings, inspected military facilities, and carried documents marked Geheime Reichssache, top secret of the Reich. But he wasn't German, he wasn't loyal to Hitler, and he wasn't a general. He was a spy hiding in plain sight, a man who infiltrated the highest ranks of the Nazi military without ever stepping into an intelligence school, without ever being trained, and without ever officially existing in the eyes of Allied command. This is the unbelievable true story of the spy who became a Nazi general, without being one. His origins remain clouded in speculation. Some historians believe he grew up in Austria. Others insist he was Polish or Czech, or even a German dissident whose hatred for the regime drove him to espionage. What is known is that he possessed two rare abilities. He could imitate voices with uncanny perfection, and he could absorb mannerisms, posture, tone, gestures, within minutes of meeting someone. He also had a gift far more dangerous. He understood the psychology of uniforms. He once said, "People don't fear the man, they fear the symbols he wears." And in the Third Reich, no symbol commanded more instant obedience than the golden eagle perched above a general's insignia. He discovered this power almost by accident. In 1942, he worked in a military supply depot seized by the Germans. His job was meaningless: carry boxes, unload crates, fetch tools. He had no reason to be noticed. And that anonymity made something extraordinary possible. One night, while cleaning a storage room, he found a trunk containing an officer's uniform, a high-ranking one, complete with decorations, polished boots, and a cap that glimmered under dim light. It belonged to a general lieutenant who had been transferred east weeks earlier, leaving behind some of his belongings. Curiosity overcame him. He put on the jacket, then the cap. Then he looked in the mirror. What stared back was not the man he had been moments before, but someone entirely different. Someone feared, someone obeyed. The next morning he tested a theory. He walked past the guards wearing only the cap. They saluted. That was his beginning. He studied officers obsessively. How they walked, how they scolded subordinates, how they gave orders. He memorized phrases in precise German dialects, practiced stern expressions in the mirror, and trained himself to speak with the clipped authority of a Prussian aristocrat. Within months, he could impersonate any mid to high-ranking officer with ease. Their posture, their arrogance, their tone. He understood them better than they understood themselves. And then he did something bold, something so dangerous it bordered on madness. He impersonated an officer to gain access to restricted areas. He simply walked into a logistics office, slammed a folder on the table, and barked, "Where is the updated convoy schedule? I need it now." Everyone obeyed. No one questioned him. Not even the real officer he was impersonating, who was stationed hundreds of kilometers away. The power was intoxicating, and with each successful infiltration, he learned more about supply lines, troop movements, and weaknesses inside the Nazi war machine. But he still wasn't a spy, not yet. His transformation came after a single encounter, a quiet man in a trench coat who approached him behind a storage facility one evening. "You're not who you pretend to be," the man said. The impersonator froze, but instead of raising the alarm, the stranger smiled. "You're better," he whispered. The man introduced himself as a recruiter for an underground resistance network operating across multiple occupied territories. They had heard rumors, whispers of an officer who appeared in impossible places, accessing impossible files, asking questions only a spy would ask. They wanted to recruit him. He agreed. And now, his impersonations were no longer a thrill. They were weapons. His first mission for the resistance was simple: infiltrate a supply office and identify which convoys carried ammunition for the German advance in the east. He walked into the building, dressed as a Wehrmacht major. The guards saluted. The clerk stood at attention. He demanded the convoy files with such authority that even senior staff scrambled. He didn't steal the documents. He simply read them, then walked out as if he had every right to. The resistance sabotaged those convoys days later. Success followed success. He disrupted supply networks, shifted troop deployments, misrouted essential equipment, delivered false reports that spread confusion across commands, and passed secrets to the resistance that shaped Allied strategies across Europe. And still, he remained invisible. The moment everything changed came in 1944. A real German general died in an air raid at the front, but had not yet been reported dead to Berlin. His papers, uniforms, ID, and credentials were retrieved by field officers, but somewhere during the transfer, a satchel containing his identification vanished. The resistance obtained it, and they gave it to him. Now he possessed something unthinkable, the full identity of a real German general. He memorized every detail. He studied the man's handwriting. He forged reports with practiced ease. He learned his signature until it flowed like ink from instinct. Then, with terrifying confidence, he traveled to a regional headquarters wearing the general's insignia. The salute he received was crisp, the respect immediate, the danger unimaginable. Because now he wasn't impersonating a generic officer, he was impersonating a specific one, with power, authority, and access, and no one questioned him. From 1944 to early 1945, he moved through German command centers like a phantom. He attended strategy meetings, reviewed classified maps, issued subtle orders that shifted resources and delayed critical operations. He approved transfers that never occurred. He denied supply requests that should have been granted. He rewrote deployment schedules to create bottlenecks. He didn't sabotage the German war machine with explosives. He sabotaged it with paperwork. The most powerful weapon he used was a pen. The Germans unknowingly helped him every step of the way. The closer the war came to collapse, the more frightened and chaotic officers became, and the more they relied on strict hierarchy to maintain control. If a man with general's insignia shouted an order, they obeyed. If he demanded a file, they handed it over. If he accused someone of inefficiency, they panicked. Authority blinded them. He exploited that blindness with deadly precision. But no deception lasts forever. Suspicion finally surfaced when the real general's family, sheltered away from the front, attempted to contact him. Their letters bounced. Their messages were unanswered. Their inquiries confused officers who believed they had seen him days earlier. Rumors spread. Reports conflicted. A quiet unease crept into German ranks. And then the nightmare scenario occurred. Another officer saw him in one city, and the official death record of the real general reached Berlin the same day. Panic erupted. If the general was dead, who was the man wearing his insignia? The Gestapo launched an emergency investigation. They traced sightings of the impersonator across multiple regions, but the descriptions were inconsistent: tall, average, blonde, dark-haired, scarred, clean-shaven. They weren't chasing a man. They were chasing an idea, and the idea terrified them. They issued direct orders. Apprehend the impostor at once. He is extremely dangerous. But he was already gone. As Allied forces closed in on Germany, the impersonator disappeared into the chaos. Soldiers deserting, civilians fleeing, records burning, the Gestapo collapsing. One day he was seen walking away from a ruined military post, uniform torn, insignia missing, face expressionless. The next day, he was nowhere. Some say he joined Allied intelligence after the war, helping track down war criminals by playing roles even they couldn't see through. Others insist he returned to civilian life, abandoning the world of lies forever. A few believe he died anonymously, buried under a name that was never his to begin with. But a classified file discovered decades later contains a single chilling line. He walked through the Third Reich wearing its power, yet belonged to no nation. He never fired a shot. He never planted a bomb. He never commanded a real army. Yet few individuals damaged Nazi operations as effectively as the spy who became a Nazi general, without ever being one.